Hey, gang, what's up? Welcome to the Inside Wag Nutrition Podcast. Hey, today we have kind of a different kind of show. It's going to be fun, but Chris, why don't you explain what we're going to do today?
All right, so this is an episode Josh and I have been excited about doing for a little while now and has come up in multiple conversations. So today we're going to essentially be dispelling, or rather providing some input as to over and underrated nutrition and fitness industry myths. A lot of the stuff that you see coming at you on the socials from people that we've talked about. Briefly on other podcasts, but today we're going to dive into a couple of different categories of nutrition, supplements, and fitness. Talk about a couple little bullet points of like things going on in those different categories, kind of what the popular thing is in those worlds right now, and then kind of providing our insight on whether or not that's something that you should be worried about or maybe not worried about and why. So we'll provide some context and nuance on that. We're not going to go into the weeds with the science and all that stuff. We can get into these things individually in later podcasts, but really it's just a broad generalization of these things to help you, again, cut through the chaos and focus on those big rock items that is supported by the scientific literature in terms of science and evidence-based nutrition and fitness, which is what WAG is all about. We're here to help you succeed, not send you on a wild path chasing things.
Yeah.
So Josh, do you want to kick it off with our first? So we're going to start with nutrition. And what's the first thing we're going to cover in nutrition?
Yes. So a hot topic, post-workout anabolic window. What do you think, Chris?
I think that's overrated. Myself, how about you?
I say overrated. There are some kind of there's some benefits, and we'll get into it in just a minute. But overall, I would say overrated. Bingo.
Yep. Boom. Overrated. And the idea of that anabolic window, right? It's that post-workout window. Like, I'm done my workout. If I'm going to preserve my gains, I need to get a protein shake in and a good quality carb source in me immediately, or that workout's going to be all for none. And that just simply isn't the case, people. It is a matter of total calories and total protein consumed throughout the day. Ideally, a fairly even spread, but not everyone can mimic that. And it is based on the individual. So again, you've got to do what is good for you and what you feel best doing. So play around with those ideas, really.
Yeah.
But no.
I think that's the caveat right there, is to play around with these ideas, because I do think that planning your pre and post workout meal is a good way to structure your day, especially if you're in a deficit, because you want the most energy for your training block. So I've done this personally, and I know a lot of clients that have done this that are maybe getting ready for a meet where their calories are very low. They're trying to make weight, but we funnel a lot of the protein and carbohydrates mainly, but carbohydrates and protein towards their workout window. And we want to make sure that they have some fuel in the tank to begin, so maybe an hour before, like, you have that snack or drink or whatever it is you might have. And then afterwards, again, usually because they're in such a deficit, you want to just get a meal in soon after that to start to come back to life a little bit if you're really, really depleted. So it's not so much that it's an absolute must. Like, it's not like the workout is just gone, like, forget it, who cares if you don't get those carbs and proteins in immediately after. That's just simply not true. That's not the case. But again, planning your day accordingly and making sure that you have some healthy food in, like, how do you say, ready to go, I guess, just ready to go after your workout, is a good way to, like, structure your day. So it's not 100% necessary, but it's definitely a good way to practice your nutrition and preparation skills.
Yep. And if you're if you're intentionally training, these could be the two most important meals of your day to figure out.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Yep.
And I tell people all the time, figure those meals out first, and then whatever you have left, you can kind of, like, spread them out. But
100%.
So, cool.
All right. What do we got next?
Boy, this is a big one. You ready? Intermittent fasting. What do you think? Intermittent fasting.
Overrated.
Agreed. Overrated. So
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about it though,
Yep.
because, well, I guess, like, what is intermittent fasting? Intermittent
Yeah.
fasting traditionally is the 16-hour fast with an 16-hour fast with an 8-hour eating window where you
Yes.
consume all your calories for the day, and then boom, you close it off at that point. You want to dig into this a little bit here?
Sure. So a lot of people will essentially say, like, "Oh, I started intermittent fasting, and the weight started to come off."
Mm,
And when and people make those statements, you have to ask why that's happening.
mm,
So much like most diets work because they're creating a calorie deficit by telling you a group of foods you can eat and a group of foods that you need to knock out of your diet entirely, and then no wonder why you lose weight because you're not eating a bunch of those calories anymore. In a way, intermittent fasting is the same. So if you are trying to hit, if I'm trying to eat 2,600 calories a day, and that's a deficit for me, right? And that's what's going to produce fat loss. What can often be easiest is taking that 2,600 calories and instead of spreading it out over the course of a 16-hour a day when I'm awake and doing all these things and I'm not sleeping, that's an opportunity to, kind of float my calories more evenly. But when you're slamming them and crunching them into an 8-hour window of time, you get to eat more calories in a shorter amount of time, which
more.
generally leads to being able to eat bigger meals because you have to get your calories in a shortened window of time because if you don't be intentional with it, it's not going to happen. And the idea is that you're just fuller for longer
Yeah.
in a shortened amount of time. And so that's a win-win when you're trying to reinforce a deficit. So if you're not a breakfast person and you just like to get up in the morning, have some coffee, water, do your thing, and not eat your first meal until noon or 1, which I generally do most of the time, no matter what my dieting preference is at the time. It's just how I like to schedule my life. That's great. It works. But there's nothing magical about it.
Mm,
That there is this idea that there's something magical about it. But when you understand the pretext as to why it's providing the end result, then you see it as the tool that it is. And so intermittent fasting is a tool to align with your schedule, your preferences, and your eating preferences. You can eat many more smaller meals across the day to hit your 2,600 calories, or I could eat fewer, larger meals, which to me, I love that. I love sitting at a bunch of food and being like, hell yeah, I get to eat all of this, not tiny little nibbles
yeah.
throughout the day. And that keeps me satisfied, keeps the brain off the idea of food. I'm trucking along to my next meal. It just keeps me structured. That's
Hmm.
what it is. It's a tool for structure.
That's great. That's a great synopsis of it. Yep.
Cool.
I mean, yeah. I won't even add anything because
All
that
right.
was great. That was great.
Okay. Cool.
Uh,
Next one
next,
then. Yeah. Eating clean, Josh. What do you think about that?
boy. Again, there's asterisks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we need an asterisk next to
Yes.
this because this is so different for every person, right?
Mm. What does clean mean?
Right. I mean, are you me?
Yeah.
What's clean to
What
me
does it
is
mean?
different. It's different to me than what it is to you. I think you. So Chris made a joke earlier that he said clean eating is eating an Oreo that doesn't have dirt on it.
Yeah. That's my idea. Clean eating.
That's very, very funny. When I
Yeah.
think of, excuse me, when I think of clean eating, I think of more like the bodybuilder style diet where it's like
Hmm.
the typical, stereotypical, I should say,
Yeah.
chicken, rice, and broccoli meals.
Yum yum.
That's like quote unquote clean eating.
Hmm.
Obviously, that's not the only way to, quote unquote eat clean, but
Yep.
that's what I think about. So I mean, I personally, I think it's overrated.
Yep.
Chris,
I think it's overrated as well. Again, with the asterisks.
there you go.
But I think in general purposes, what people are generally trying to say when they say eating clean, it is eating Mother Nature provided single ingredient foods, whole foods.
That's
That's
right.
it. Fruits, vegetables, leafy greens, whole grains, beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, animal proteins. You're on your merry way.
That's
That's
right.
pretty straightforward, right? But it isn't to say that just because you eat clean foods, you can't overeat those things either, right?
That's right.
And cause a surplus or whatever it is. It may negate the particular goals that you have. But again, there's nothing magical about it. But there is a lot of health benefits there, and what it lends to your nutrition sustainability and tolerance, which is being fuller for longer, being able to eat more foods for fewer calories. Win-win.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. I think it's important to just understand that neither of us is saying go out and eat junk as long as it fits
No,
your macros. You know,
exactly.
that's not what we're saying. We're just saying that there's a lot more gray
Hmm.
area than people might think. You know,
Yep.
you can eat, you know, these healthy uh all natural meals or all natural food sources and have like some sort of like small treat or something else that maybe would otherwise be like ostracized from a diet and
Right.
still live to the for the next day, live to see the sunrise another day. The problem is that when people eat really, really clean, quote unquote clean, and all natural foods, uh, single source foods, if they have one of those things, one of those treats, one of those small things, they have trouble stopping. So that's where you have to like kind of know yourself. It's like, you know, you can either just totally cut it out, or if you're able to moderate, you can have those little things sprinkled in, and it's not really going to affect you as long as it fits your total calorie intake.
Mm.
But there's no question that eating single source food, everything Chris just said, single source foods, you know, bigger meals that fill you up for longer, like that is going to be the best way to improve your health
Hmm.
and likely manage your weight, whichever
Yes.
way you want to do that. So
Hmm. It's kind of a no-brainer
yeah,
when it
I
comes to
mean, but there's
long-term efficacy of your diet, no matter
yeah,
what your
that's right,
goals are. Yeah, yeah.
that's right.
Hmm.
So cool. And one of the last ones that we have here for the nutrition portion: liver and organ meats. Liver and organ meats. This is, you go on
Yeah,
Instagram, I mean,
it's everywhere.
it seems
Maybe
like
not
it's
as much,
everywhere.
but I think it's on a downslope. But we know with most
Yeah.
nutrition fads and things, it'll come back around like the comet that it is.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, they always come back in some different repackaged form,
For
if you will.
sure.
So yeah, um,
For sure. I mean, I think that this is dramatically overrated and overblown, for sure.
agreed, agreed. And again, the nuance here being everyone is that we're not saying that liver and organ meats can't or won't be good for you, but this idea that if you're just including them in your diet and it's all you're eating, that again, that's going to provide some sort of magical response or a result or whatever, is just, it's just not supported. um you know, a lot of these diets tend to even demonize vegetables, believe it or not, right?
Yeah.
People who are very carnivore associated.
Hmm.
It's kind of a weird thing to even wrap your head around. Like, wait, you're telling me that vegetables are bad? Like, what? It's an interesting thing. But
Yeah.
again, if you like liver, if you like eating organ meats, and that's the catalyst for you being able to hit your protein in an enjoyable and sustainable way to
Hmm.
meet your protein goals for your specific goals and achievements, awesome. Do you? I think
Yeah.
liver's disgusting. I think organ meats are gross.
Yeah.
I don't like the price. Even if I did, I would the price, the accessibility, trying to get them, cooking them, all that stuff, eating them raw. It's all for Instagram, people. It's just, it looks cool. It looks like it's providing some fucking thing that it's not. And it's just, you know, eat the rainbow of proteins and different things, you know, to get it in. It's just, if that's part of it, great. But again,
Yeah.
there's nothing magical about that over something else.
Yeah, totally.
Yep,
Yep.
you can get
That's
all your micronutrients and nutritional needs in a
mhm.
well versed and well varied nutritional approach.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
The the uh the little asterisk for this one is that there is no denying that organ meats and liver in particular is extremely rich in nutrients.
Yes.
So there is like, again, the caveat with this stuff is like there is like nutritional value that you can gain from it. But it's just really, really overblown,
Yeah.
like on Instagram. I mean, I don't know, we probably don't want to get into like talking about specific accounts, but I mean, it's not
No.
hard to find people
Hmm.
promoting this sort of diet, especially carnivore. Carnivore is extremely popular.
Hmm.
But you know, I don't think that that's a sustainable way to treat your nutrition habits, and I think that most people would say the same. There was a saying that I can't remember who said it. Boy, I think it might have been another nutrition company actually. um, I'll say their name on here. Tactic. It might have been
Yeah.
Tactic that said it.
Hmm.
Um, they were talking about keto, the keto diet, and the quote was, "I'm gonna do the keto diet again because it worked the first time."
Because it worked the first
Because it
time.
worked the first time, yeah. And so
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
the video, it was, I
I
mean,
love it.
they do great stuff, like,
Mhm.
for sure, and, that is a great, example of, like, some of these, like, more extreme diets where it's like, oh, you might do it for a week, and it's like, boom, you start to shed water, you start to shed some fat, and you're like, "This is a miracle, like, this is it."
Mhm.
And then day 10 hits and you're like, okay, like, and then 2 weeks and 3 weeks and you're like, I'm going to explode. I'm going to, or no, implode maybe. I'm going to
Yeah, right.
implode.
Yeah.
And it's very, very difficult to sustain. So if you want to incorporate these, like Chris said, if you want to
Mhm.
incorporate these into a well-balanced, varied diet, that's cool.
Mhm.
But the over, promotion of the benefits and the necessity for them, I think, is where the problem comes in. So I
Yeah.
would say, yep, we're gonna go back to this.
Yeah.
I would say
And this idea that if you're not
overrated.
doing that, that you're somehow losing out because you're
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
unless you really love liver.
that's right.
And
That's
you're
right.
sad because you didn't get to eat liver today. That's it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
Over. All right.
over. Yeah. All right.
So,
We're jumping into supplements.
ooh, big one. Big
All right,
topic.
Chris, what do we got?
First one on the list is BCAAs, otherwise known as branch chain amino acids, which are generally consumed in the form of a powder pre-workout, sometime within 15 to 30 minutes of your workout. People
Mhm.
love to just pop it in their mouth in their cars and their videos and then swig it with some water and then, get it down and whatnot, and then go into the gym and they think it's having some amazing effect on their workout because of how it makes your blood tingle in your body and how it makes your brain feel. But really, what are your thoughts on it, Josh? Ooh, over. I
Overrated.
I would
Overrated.
concur, doctor.
Yeah.
Why
Overrated.
why is that, Josh?
Um, just because if you're eating enough protein in your diet in general, your system's gonna be flushed with amino acids. You're
Mhm.
not gonna be missing out on anything.
Yeah.
Um, there's a study, I think it was Brad Schoenfeld that did the study, and he might have had assistance from, gosh, it might have been Alan Aragon or James Krieger. I can't.
Most likely. Yeah.
Those three guys have done a ton of work. I'll throw in Lyle McDonald as well. A ton of research and
Yeah.
a ton of work on protein intake and what's proper for the different variations of the human body. But the amino acid thing, I distinctly remember Brad Schoenfeld talking about how this can actually be detrimental because all of a sudden your body is, or all of a sudden we have BCAs here, and then we have like your regular protein intake here, and there's a competition for absorption.
Mm.
So if you take in a lot of BCAs, like thinking like, oh, this is just going to help me not get so sore, and I'm going to keep my muscle and all this. Meanwhile, you're eating the proper amount of protein per day. Um, your body will probably regularly absorb those easier branch chain amino acids, and therefore we miss out on a ton of other amino acids that animal animal-based proteins
Mm.
hold, and also other nutrients that you could be getting from those foods in lieu of this supplement. So it actually can
Yeah.
cause like more of a problem than it solves.
Mm. And it takes a lot more work to get those animal proteins down than it does to just pop a scoop of something into your, pre-workout
Yeah,
cocktail, you know? Yeah.
yeah,
So,
for sure.
hmm, good. Yeah. Well
So yeah.
said. Let's
Guess
see.
what, Chris?
Ah.
The next one is called creatine monohydrate.
Mm.
What do you think?
I think for most, I'm going to go with underrated
I agree.
with a caveat, but yeah.
Underrated.
So, underrated. So, creatine is great for you can have some performance enhancement, some muscle retention abilities, things like that can help you. But it is one of the for over 3 decades now. It is one of the
Yeah.
most widely studied, tested, verified, safe supplements on the market. time and time and time again, it has been shown to be advantageous and beneficial to those who don't even lift weights or strength train. So when you get that sort of feedback from studies, you're just like, it becomes kind of like one of those things where it's a why not thing,
Hmm.
but it's also inexpensive. And it's straightforward. There's no proprietary blends. There's no question marks. There's no
Right.
skirty stuff around it. It's pretty straightforward and generalized. And I've had my moments with it on and off again, but I generally kind of just have it be one of those things that I just kind of regularly do because it's inexpensive, it's easy to do. I throw that in my coffee in the morning, boom, wham, and done. I can't personally say that I've noticed any sort of anecdotal
Yeah.
benefit between having a workout session where I had creatine or a day where I might have missed it or skipped it. It's such a small read that, again, it's
Yeah.
one of those things that, like, it's highly unlikely to, like, make the difference between you hitting a PR or not, right? It's not one of those performance enhancing things, but it just kind of has more of that longevity
Hmm.
in your diet. Like, the more that it's included and sustained and your body is getting these things regularly, that will probably have more of a compound effect over time, especially as a person who is trying to maintain and develop a very, very solid, dense, massive muscle on their
Yeah.
frame, all times or through their life for longevity,
Hmm.
and decreasing injuries, ligaments, joints, all these things, the injuries that happen in different sports and stuff like that. It's kind of goes to that longevity, injury prevention, and these things can kind of help with that long term. But yeah, again, nothing magical about it,
Yeah.
but underrated because more people may stand to benefit from it if they try.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I think it carries a little bit of a stigma, like you have to like be this like power lifter, weightlifter to use it and
Mm,
get any benefit out of it, which is not the case. It's safe for both men and women. Um, the doses are different.
yeah.
I've read a couple different studies and a couple different perspectives on it, but for most people, like men taking 5 grams a day is extremely safe, and women taking 3 grams a day is extremely safe.
Mhm.
Um, and like Chris said, he puts it in his coffee, and it doesn't taste like anything. Then
Yep.
it's in his system.
Neutral.
Neutral. I have it in my protein shake every morning. That way, it's just in your system, like ready to go. One of the things that, excuse me again, two things. One is the recovery aspect of creatine is really cool, and this is one of the things that people get hung up on is when they're trying to lose weight. They're like, "Oh, should I use creatine because I want to lose weight? So should I? Is it going to like be detrimental to that?"
Hmm.
And the answer to that is no,
Nope.
because what creatine does is it pulls water intramuscularly, not subcutaneously. So
Hmm.
I should say, back in the 90s, before the process of creating the creatine was refined, there was a little bit of a bloat associated with creatine.
Mm.
Um, and this has been studied and shown time and time again. But as the years went on, as Chris said, decades later, the process has gotten so um, like pinpoint refined that the creatine is a really, really fine and a really high quality. And what happens is that the creatine will pull water intramuscularly. Wow, that's a
Yep.
hard word to say.
Yeah.
Um,
Intramuscularly.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, so you're tearing yourself up in the
Yep.
gym, right? You're stretching and tearing up your muscle fibers. What creatine can help do doesn't. It's not like a magic pill or anything like that. But what it can help do is pull water into the muscle to assist and enhance the recovery period, or
Yeah.
speed up the
Mhm.
recovery period. So that's really helpful. That's really good. You might look a little bit more like jacked. Like if you have
Mhm.
lower body fat and you take um, creatine, you might see like a aesthetic change.
A little more of
This is
that
this is
pump
it's
look,
yeah,
kind
more
of.
of that pumped look, and
Yeah.
it's very slight and it changes from person to person,
Yeah.
but there is that sort of benefit, which is cool. And then the other thing is more recently the cognitive benefit to taking creatine,
Mm.
which is really interesting, and it's for the same reasons as it pulling water into your muscles that have been damaged. There's now research to show that it enhances brain functionality, and
Mm.
also some like recovery principles. If you're like under extreme stress, or you work a very, very demanding job, not only does it help you with total body recovery, and it's now showing to help with your mental recovery and mental well-being as well. So I
Hmm.
believe Dr. Andy Galpin just did a podcast about that, and it's really interesting. So
Yeah, keeping the
there you
old
go.
brain lubed up, right? For
Yeah, yeah.
function and
So there you
cognition.
go.
Boom.
Underrated. Our first one.
Underrated. Yeah,
Underrated.
underrated.
Um, cool. Boy, we're moving right along, aren't we,
Yeah,
Chris?
getting towards the end of it. Our last category
Already,
here.
yeah. I should
Um,
say, how about this? If
hmm,
you're listening to this right now and there's something you want us to cover, let us know. You
please.
can you can drop a comment on the podcast below. If you're a part of our WAG members group on Mighty Networks or our Facebook page, drop a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, we'll keep doing episodes like this because, to be honest, they're really fun. So
They are. Yeah.
um, so yeah. Next up, Chris, what do we got?
All right. Third and final category we're going to cover is fitness myths.
Fitness myths.
Yeah. With the first being, Josh.
Fitness trackers /
Mm,
wearables.
like Fitbit, Whoop,
Whoop.
Apple Watch,
Mm-hmm.
Aura Ring,
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
you can
Yeah.
include Garmin, you could include all these
That's right.
other
Yeah,
like
Garmin,
stuff like
all
that.
these things.
Yeah, boy,
What do you think?
People aren't going to be happy about this one, Chris.
They're not. They're not.
Oh, for those listening, I held up
Yeah.
the overrated sign.
Over. Yep. So.
Yep. Wow, where to begin
Yeah.
with this one?
Let's start with the facts. What
Sure.
studies show about testing all of these things? And there's been some studies in the last few years that have kind of brought out this like kind of disappointing comparing multiple wearables, trackers, different people, all that. Essentially, what was found is that the data is not really reliable because of the rate of inconsistency with it. It could be upwards of 20%. 27% or higher off in over under. So if you're a person who is working out to maintain a set of burn calories per day or per workout or something like that, thinking you're hitting this metric, chances are you're not.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Because the reason being is when pursuing your calorie intake, if we're a deficit to lose body fat, at maintenance to maintain your body weight, or in a calorie surplus to gain weight, whatever form that may be. The idea is you're going to be able to control your calories far easier in your nutrition than you will be able to modify them or have a bearing on them in your exercise because it is so inconsistent. You know,
Yeah.
like you look at your watch and you think you burned 1,000 calories from that workout. Probably didn't. You know,
Probably didn't.
there's that idea, right? Like in CrossFit, CrossFit Open, that these workouts are somehow taking more. You know, like CrossFit Open's like, should I up my carbs and all this stuff? I'm like, it's just another CrossFit workout. It's harder because it has all the hard stuff packed together that you normally don't combine, like your normal gym wouldn't program. It just feels harder because it's intense and the expectations are higher and all these things. So that
That's
feeds
right.
into your mindset, right? And this idea that you need more, but really it's you probably burned another 350 calories like you did in yesterday's normal WOD.
Yep.
It's just the evidence isn't there. So what are they good for though, Josh, in terms of accountability and establishing baselines of your lifestyle habits?
Yeah. So that's the asterisk on this one. That's the caveat on this one.
Yeah.
Is like you can absolutely, like step trackers, you can absolutely use these fitness trackers and wearables to gauge how active you have been during the day. Now, like Chris was saying, the numbers are not going to be super reliable in the calorie burn respect.
Yes.
However, like if you sit at a desk job all day and you have one of these on, right? Yeah, same. You have one of these on, you can like tap into it and say like, like you might feel kind of sluggish or whatever. And it's like, oh, I've only walked like 5,000 steps today, and the day is like half over, or maybe even it's further along than that. Seeing numbers like that and knowing that you should be targeting like a higher number of steps just to continue to increase and maintain your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, Um, all the benefits of that are super well documented. So
Hmm.
if you can use the tracker to look and be like, I should probably get up and go for a walk around the block, or go do something else, just for a little bit. Like, that's 100% like a positive.
Mm.
We're not saying that these are negative, that these are bad things. It's just putting too much stock into the data that you see that can be problematic.
Yeah, getting
And
tripped up over it, or
that's that's
yeah,
right. Or just using it to justify behaviors is
yeah.
generally what I see. Like, I will talk to some people, some either at my gym or some WAG clients, and they'll try to justify maybe a night out or a cheat meal because they had a big day in the gym, or they were just doing like all this stuff. And well, my tracker says I burned like 1,200 calories on that run. So I mean, yeah, I went for it last night with dinner, and it's like, you not really,
Mm.
you were active, like, for sure, and that's a good thing, but you don't you should not. I was gonna say you don't need to, but you should not use these numbers to justify behaviors,
No.
unless you're looking at them and you're like, I have not moved at all today, and then you're justifying going out for a walk. That's a little bit
Yeah.
different, but
Yeah,
yeah.
rewarding yourself calories back from calories burned in exercise can
Mm,
often be what negates the deficit that you set in your nutrition to begin with.
yeah,
And a lot of new clients that we see coming in who get their MyFitnessPal set up to sync with Seismic and fill in their logs, the first thing I check in that first week or two is if they are logging activity into their MyFitnessPal, which is then rewarding them back calories
that's right.
burned from exercise. Because again, if it's doing that and these calories are incorrect as they are, not only is it actually probably causing you to eat closer to maintenance, if not into a surplus, but those are off.
Yeah,
So you're not really going to get a good read on what is actually working. But that's again why we control the calories and the macronutrients from your nutrition, which is far more controllable, far more predictable than anything you're going to stand to gain from a read on calories burned any given day. And an
yeah.
anecdotal story too, I haven't had a wearable for some time now. I went and picked up some cheap whatever band because again,
Mhm.
working from home, outside of my normal workouts and going for walks with my dogs or hikes and things like that, like on an average day, I might be lucky to hit 4,000 steps a day.
Mhm.
Going to the bathroom, filling my water bottle, just normal generic stuff throughout my day. So if I'm not being intentional about it, I'm not going to get to my 6 to 8K step count, at least my minimum, right?
Yeah.
And so it's good to get a read on those things when you are being more highly active in movement, because then that's motivational to be like, I want to keep this going, or at least find out what my through line through the week is. And then you've got a baseline in which you've established to which you can improve off of it. And then I also use this in terms of what you said with NEAT. So when a client comes to this roadblock, we're like, hey, it looks like for the last 2 weeks, your weight has kind of steadied out. It's plateaued a bit. And that's not to say that that's bad or anything, because maintaining your weight is great. We know that. But we're at a crossroads. So I could either reduce your calories or you can increase your activity through NEAT, through natural
Mm.
everyday movement, right? To kind of flush that deficit a little further, which me going out for a walk to make sure I'm hitting a higher step count could be far more tolerable and sustainable than it could be to eat 30 less grams of carbs a day.
Yeah.
So there is a trade-off, because again, people, this is energy balance. But again, getting into the weeds and thinking that you're going to be precise about it is that thought that you're going to be perfect with your macro tracking too, which is just not possible. So
Yeah.
don't do it. It's a waste of energy.
Yeah.
Put your energy elsewhere is what we're trying to say. Yeah.
Bingo. Yeah.
All right. We
Cool.
got two more. Moving
Yeah.
on.
What do you think? Ice baths?
Ice baths. Uh, Overrated.
Overrated.
Yep. Yeah.
There's value here, but it's
Yeah.
not gonna it's not gonna if you're not eating right and you're not sleeping,
Hmm.
it's not gonna fix those problems.
No. Yeah. If you're under
Unfortunately.
eating, under-slept, under-recovered,
Yeah.
it can make you more prone to injury, things like that. Recent studies have actually shown that it can negate the retention of muscle mass for individuals who are training to preserve and build muscle mass. It can actually kind of inhibit that ability. So it is one of those things to kind of do effective dosage, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Like I had this conversation with a client of mine who was kind of doing that, telling me he's doing ice baths and stuff like that. We kind of had that conversation, like, let's not get too locked into this thing that it's really bringing about some magic, right? Or really going to increase your performance and all these things. Like what he saw it as was just a challenge to overcome. He's like, I like sitting in this thing for 5 minutes and overcoming a challenge. It's more of a mental challenge and stuff like that. So it kind of begs the question as like, what are people really doing this for? Is it for the cool Instagram video that we see everywhere, right? Everyone's just like, it's just the fad that came around, just that. Or is it just like stepping up to a challenge, overcoming it, and it's more of a mental hurdle that you started your day with to go into the day to be like, I can take on anything, right? Like that has some positive influence
for sure.
But in the same sense, if you're putting in a lot of work in the gym and then ice bathing every morning, it could be diminishing returns essentially.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's well said. Well said. The obviously the counter argument is that, flushing, getting all that oxygen, into your system like very quickly is, is very beneficial, especially for your joints. If you're doing like a CrossFit competition and you jump in an ice bath, it's like that can, it can literally cool you off, and prevent you from like overheating, but your joints can also get like some sort of benefit from it. It goes back to what Chris was saying, effective dose.
Yeah.
It's not that we're saying that this is like inherently bad. It's just overrated. Like the amount, it's just overrated. That's all.
It's not going to fix all the wrongs in your life. That's right.
Sure. Yeah. That's right. That's right. So cool. So, boy, that's it. We got one more. What? One more?
All right, one more. Yeah, that was a quick one. Nice.
Toning.
So, well, let's say what our rating is, and we'll go into actually what that means, right?
Okay.
So, toning, overrated for me.
Overrated.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about it.
All right. So this idea of toning, people say, I want to tone up, right?
Yeah.
I remember believing this thought over a decade ago that it's like, oh, well, I just got to turn this fat into muscle. In my unknown world, uneducated place that I used to be in, you got to turn fat into muscle. Like toning is essentially like this idea that you're sculpting, right? You're building your body and whatnot, or that you can spot reduce body fat by training. Like if I do 100 sit-ups a day, I'm going to spot reduce the body fat on my abdomen to reveal the actual rigid muscles that lay underneath, which is not the case. That is done through an appropriate calorie deficit to continue flushing the body fat out of your system whilst preserving and building, if you will, or sculpting. Like I think I've used the analogy of being Michelangelo carving out his David. That's what you're doing every time you show up to lift weights, to get that pump, to build, to tear, repair, recover. And then your diet is what essentially supports and reveals that hard work. But this idea that you're going to tone just by lifting, but not having any sense of control of diet, like it might work for a little while, but a lot of female clients kind of latch onto this idea of toning. It's like, well, I want to look lean, but I don't want to look too muscular. And it's like, okay, well, all right. Well, once you get to a point, then just stop lifting the heavier weights kind of thing, just find the weight that keeps you in that groove, stop progressing to then branch through that next or break through that next, ceiling that you've hit. So, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. Toning is just a different way. I mean, when we read that from a client, it's like, okay, you want to lose some fat and build a little bit of muscle. Like that's what we're talking about.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that can be, it's a mental thing for sure, because like we know objectively that that's what this person means and that's what they're looking for. But to get them to understand that there is going to be like the lifting of weights is required to quote unquote tone, I mean, people will say that toning isn't a thing, like muscle toning is not a thing. It's losing fat and then gaining a little bit of muscle or preserving the muscle that you have underneath the fat. That's what quote unquote toning is. Yeah.
Or it could be like considered high reps at lower weight. Like that's how you tone, right? Like,
sure. But again, to a coach and someone that has kind of like been in the industry for a while, it's like, okay, this person wants to lose body fat and either promote muscle gain or just maintain the muscle that they already have, depending on their body composition. So the idea of toning is just overrated because toning isn't really a thing. It's more like, hey, we're going to drop your body fat and we're going to maintain your muscle and grow it a little bit. How's that sound? Sound good? Good. All right. That's what we're going to do.
Now we're on the same page. Awesome.
Now we're on the same page, right? And again, it's not that, I think it's just like a I don't want to say like naivete,
Hmm.
but it's just it's a confusing term to use, and
Yeah.
magazines use it all the time, websites use it all the time.
Oh yeah.
Um, so again, when
It's
clients
a
come and
clickable keyword kind of
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
definitely,
Hmm.
it's like SEO works,
Yeah.
toning, it works really well.
Yep.
Um, but when it comes down to it, what we're talking about is achieving a lower body fat percentage to show off the muscle that you already have.
Yep.
And that's what toning is. So I would
Yeah.
say the word toning overrated for sure.
Overrated.
Yeah.
Yes. Hmm.
I think for posterity's sake, I'll hold this up. I don't know if
Yeah,
I held
just
it
why
up
not? Yeah,
yet.
consistency. There we go.
Yeah,
Overrated for those YouTube watchers.
yeah, that's right. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think I mean that's it, gang.
we did it.
These are keep in mind these are obviously not all of
No,
the
there's
the
so
hot
many.
topics. There's
We had to
so
narrow it
many of
down
them.
just to these.
These are
Mhm.
these are just ones that we see and hear often.
Yeah,
And like we
and
said earlier in the episode, if there are some that you would like us to talk about, or some that if you have questions you want answered, throw them in the comments. Let us know.
mhm.
Um, we would love to hear from you, and we can tackle some of these, as a team. And I don't want anyone to feel like they're going to be put on the spot. You know what I mean? Because I
Oh
know that
no,
sometimes asking questions can get
yeah,
you kind of
we're not going to
feel
be like so and so
yeah,
asked. No, we're just taking
yeah.
your question. That's all. Yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah. We're just taking the question
yep.
and running with it. Because
Yeah,
think about it this way: if you have that question, there's probably 10 other people that have that question too.
yeah. And there's no such thing as a dumb question,
That's right.
especially when you're learning something new and you're trying to wrap your head around new ideas
Yeah,
and the fundamentals of fitness and nutrition. Um, yeah, be a sponge, be open to what you have to learn, because there's so much and you're not gonna figure it all out in 3
yeah,
months. You're not gonna figure it all out in a year. It is a lifetime pursuit. So
yeah,
yeah. Mhm. And that's what
yeah,
we're here to
yeah.
help you do. And to make that easier, if you use code InsideWAG at checkout at workingagainstgravity.com/join, we will take $50 off of your first month's nutrition coaching service, no matter which plan you choose. So code InsideWAG at checkout. And yeah, we look forward to the next one, everyone.
Yeah. Thank
Anything
you
else,
very
Josh,
much.
to close it out?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say
Right.
that was a great way to close it. But so gang, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see y'all. we'll s- we'll we'll talk to y'all soon. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, we'll do all those things.
All those things.